Tough day on Wall Street. President Trump's new tariff threat taking down two key parts of the market, retail and the semiconductors. We, of course, have team coverage of both of those big movers. Courtney Reagan all over retail wreckage. But let's start with Bertha Coombs on the semis sell-off. Bertha?
You know, to start with the semi sell-off, you really have to start with the Apple sell-off. Take a look at this intraday chart on Apple. It was a $12 move intraday on Apple. It had just busted out to about $219. And Apple, in fact, on its conference call had said that they had seen sales rebound in China. They were growing again. This has been one of the issues that has dogged them for over a year. But here we are again talking about tariffs. At the close today, we closed exactly almost where we were back on May 6th at the beginning of the swoon that we saw in technology over this issue of tariffs. Take a look at the chips today. For the week, they are now down about 5%. They got hit hard yesterday on the disappointment that we weren't getting a 50 basis point cut. And they got hit again today with the tweets just as they were starting to recover. Some of those chip names with big exposure in China, like Maxim Integrated Products, Skyworks, some of those are Apple suppliers, got hit the hardest. Maxim, in fact, had just talked about the fact that they are starting to see some stabilization in China. Nonetheless, some of their clients, like Huawei, are starting to look elsewhere. So this is one of the issues that people are worried about, that as this rhetoric heats up again, we could get, again, this sense of let's look elsewhere compared to these normal suppliers that we have been using. You could also see a bit of patriotism in China. They might look away from Apple again as they feel that the U.S. is beating up on them. Interestingly, bucking the trend today, though, was Cirrus Logic, who did talk about stabilization in China, but also potential growth as they see more stabilization in iPhone sales, and they look forward to some of their chips being used in perhaps voice biometrics by Apple in some of its devices. That was really the only sort of highlight today in the chip space when all was said and done. Back over to you.
Yeah, Bertha, thank you. That's Bertha Coombs for us. Timmy?
Well, you had
what do you think? I mean, first you had AMD, the blow up there, and now this.
Look, earnings season appropriately gave us a fair amount of bottom-up guidance into different companies who are in different parts of the chip space. You can't paint them all in the same brush, and we actually got some relief out of a couple folks, including Intel. But when you looked at memory chips, they were so oversold that there was a reason for a bounce. And in fact, the trend for Micron over the last, call it 4 weeks, has been very, very good. But if you look at NVIDIA and some of the places that have some of the higher growth chip numbers and the exposure to gaming and whatnot, they've been under more pressure. The most important thing to me about chips right now is if you're trading them as a group, they rallied 26% in about 18 days, 18 sessions going into a pullback, which is now almost 8%, of course, the last 6 sessions. This pullback started before we even were digesting Fed Powell, before we were digesting a new tweet. They were way overdone.
And when you had Micron, so Micron rallied 21% in the month of July. You had DRAM, which is tied to it's over 60% of the revenues based on DRAM. DRAM rallied 12%, Micron rallied 21%. What I think is the gift is I bought Microsoft on that breakthrough of 140. The market gave you something here. Granted, you're looking at highs that you haven't seen before. But I wanted to buy more on this dip. I'll see how long it lasts. But I think Microsoft, you're going to get a multiple expansion here, and I think it works its way to 150 if the market gets back to where the market.
You know, semis is the same story as it is with banks and industrials.
I'm guessing you're negative.
Well, here, think about it. I mean, this is the same story, right? Banks and industrials as relative to the market. Semis, it's just been a bad bet the last 2 years. If you're a tech manager and you can choose between software or semis, the cyclical bet has underperformed. And remember, that's also a U.S. phenomenon. If you look at the MSCI Japanese Semiconductor Index, or you look at Kospi, which is dominated by Samsung, almost 20%, they're not working.
See,
so it's
I get that.
But you get that. But if you're running money and you can choose between Microsoft or semis or Qualcomm or Qualcomm semi, but I mean, the point being, you're not winning with this pick. This is called negative alpha.
But couldn't you have made an argument that actually the breakout that we saw really towards the middle of July in semis to fresh highs off of breaking out above the, kind of the pre-May trade war tweet resistance, going all the way back to, again, we peaked in 2018 in the summer on semis. You could probably argue that's where we ran out of gas, except for the fact that we've made 2 new highs. I mean, and ultimately you've seen growth out of the
Once you adjust for beta, right, and you adjust for the underperforming alpha, it is a bad proposition. And you had to have been in sort of the right ones. You've got big ones like Intel just
That's
not
true.
working, right?
That's true.
And broadening out tech real quick. I mean, this is President Trump's tweet today, pre all this Fed stuff yesterday. Facebook reported a great quarter. It's gone straight down ever since they reported. Amazon reported pretty decent quarter, going straight down since it reported. And now Apple reported what everybody says a historic quarter, pretty much has gone straight down since it's reported. And then to broaden it out even further, not that we talk about this name a lot, but take a look at NTAP now in the aftermarket. Look at, they just guided down in a miserable way after having a miserable couple of months. I mean, this is a data storage play that's now trading at levels we last saw this past December. So, you know, I know everybody loves technology, a lot of good reasons to love it, but there are a lot of bad things going on out there as well.